Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If this is your first time here, I thank you so much for joining me. My name is prlvettesonai, and I'm glad you're here. So, today we're going to be talking about something that is really important, especially people who are maybe going into the workforce, or if you have a certain career path that you're on and you need to network and meet people, right? And to get through certain doors, it's really important to know a few things. We hear about all the different privileges. We hear this privilege, we hear pretty privilege. We hear about that a lot. But did you know there is a thing called dress privilege? It is real, it is nothing new. If you have ever gotten a job and you dressed really good for it and you felt a little insecure about it, and may have wondered if you truly qualified, but you got the position. That was because of your presentation, the way you were dressed, the way you presented yourself, the way you spoke, versus someone who may have been a better qualified, but they didn't show up. They didn't show up properly. So they chose you. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Back in the 2000s, when I first moved to Nashville, I needed a job. Okay. And I had been in the airline industry and so forth. But then when I moved to Nashville, I needed like a new job. So I went to a temp agency and there was a position that paid really well. And I was always professional and everything. I mean, I had a lot of corporate background, administrative assistant and so forth. But this particular was like in a human resources, and that truly was not my background. But I went to this interview in hopes that I would get the job. And I had on a red wool, like the blazer and the skirt. I was dressed really nice and sharp. And so I went to the interview a little nervous, just knowing I would not get the position. I just started feeling really, nervous about it because I saw other applicants and I was like, yeah, I know they're more qualified. Well, when I got home that night and I was thinking about it, and I was really a little bit antsy and worried, the next morning I got a call from the agency and they said I got the job. And she said that it came down to presentation. So I suppose they told her that. Presentation isn't always just about what you're wearing. It's about your professionalism, the way you interact with the person that you're talking to, that makes a big difference. And so I give that story to say you can get in a room and receive certain opportunities, even if you may not fully qualify for it, but you can learn. And I knew I could learn it if I got that job. Well, as it turned out, it just wasn't the position for me. So I was there for less than a month actually, but it got me in. And so that told me my presentation got me in. Okay. And I always kind of knew that. And that's really shallow, but that's just human nature. That's the way it goes, how that worked out for me. I have another thing that happened in recent years. A couple of years ago, I went to Los Angeles for the Oscars weekend, and my cousins and I had reservations at the Polo Lounge. Now, Sunday, Oscar Sunday at the Polo Lounge is always buzzing, okay? The Beverly Hills Hotel, that's where all the stars stay, anybody who's who, they're there that weekend. And so I made those reservations months in advance. Now, I had on like a gold evening gown. My cousins were dressed to the nine. My guy cousin had on his fine suit. We were ready. When we got there, the maitre d' or server, I think the maitre d', I suppose, took us he was taking us to our seat. And he was headed towards the patio. Now, let me just explain. At the Polo Lounge, the patio is nothing to roll your eyes at, okay? It's not your typical patio. It's fabulous. That's not where we wanted to be that evening. And so I touched my cousin. I said, listen, we can't sit out there tonight, I wanted us to be seen. We wanted to be in the midst of all the hubbub and excitement, not tucked away in the patio. I said, can you say something to him? Can you talk to him? And so my cousin went over and I heard the gentleman say, sir, give me just a minute. Do you know he gave us the prime booth in that room? We were sitting right there. We saw everything and everyone saw us, and it was just going to be a great evening. I knew it, and it surely was. You know, um, the celebrities started like milling in and everything because it was after like the red carpet after show. They do like an after thing, the interviews and all of that. So people were coming in, and we just had a great night. Now, had we shown up in just plain street clothes, they have a dress code. Like gentlemen have to have on, a jacket. But if you just had on like your basic Sunday dress or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with a Sunday dress, but when it's that type of an occasion, you need to come prepared. You need to come with your A game. I knew what I wanted out of that evening. And had we not shown up the way we did, we wouldn't have been treated as beautifully. And I'm sure of that. Again, I don't make the rules. That's just how it works. And if you get invited to a party or, some type of event, um, you need to dress accordingly. Today people say, well, they need to take me as I am. Not necessarily. When it's someone's event or their place of business, they have a right to specify how you should present yourself. Have you ever seen those signs like no entry if you're wearing this, that, you're not wearing? They have a right to do that. And you never know who is going to be in the room. You want to belong in that room. You do belong in that room. You just have to present yourself accordingly. When to, Today, I don't know where this comes from, but you see people in travel and they show up with like pajamas or some bonnet or whatever on their head, and they want their seat changed. Okay, they want to sit somewhere else, or they want an upgrade or something like that in a hotel, right? They want an upgrade, but they're dressed so sloppy or tacky. They're always going to be told, well, I'm sorry, we can't do it today. We don't have anything available. But then someone walks up behind and she is dressed to the nines. And do not say, well, it's because of race. No, that is not it. It is the presentation more so than anything else, because we don't have a right to, but we all judge people in the first few seconds that we see them. We make assumptions, if you will, about people just based on dress because we don't know them yet. And sometimes we get pleasantly surprised just because a person is dressed down. They're wonderful when they open their mouth. But if it's a certain occasion, you need to dress appropriately, no matter how wonderful your personality is, because people do not know that yet. Now, I have been in some amazing rooms in my life. And when I say rooms, I don't mean necessarily literal rooms, but I mean spaces. And I've always presented myself well because I was just raised like that, to just clean cut, just really bring your best forward, right? Now, I was in Miami and there was an event happening that I got invited to, and it was in a very posh area in Miami, Fisher Island, if you know what that is. When I got there, and these people were very elite. And I know this whole conversation sounds elitist, but this is just how things go. And if you're watching this video, you're here to try to learn. So I know that it's okay and you want to hear it. But when I got there, I realized that there was a royal in that room, a Middle Eastern prince, okay? Like the Sultan of Brunei's son was there. And had I not been the person that I am and my presentation and be polished and know how to behave. And you that's another thing. You don't want to go into rooms just because you qualify, you have the credentials and you dress nice. You don't want to go in all loud. You want people to notice you without you even opening your mouth. And they cannot wait to get to know who you are. Who is that? She just has a certain vibe, or aura. Who's that person? He is so amazing. I've got to go over and speak to him because there's something about you that is quietly fascinating. I got in a room with a royal. I'm not a royal. And, you know, connections and so forth, but it was just an invite. And also, back in the day when you used to go to nightclubs and they would handpick people. People are still getting handpicked today in business and so forth. You can't get in. They would pick people based on looks. It's like the Studio 54 effect, right? They used to like pick people. Everyday people like plumbers and so forth would get into Studio 54 and end up dancing with like Grace Kelly or somebody like that because of their presentation and who they are, their whole vibe. You are your own calling card, okay? Present yourself accordingly. Ignore all of they need to take me as I am because they don't have to take you as you are. If it's their business, they make the rules. And it's up to you if you want to, comply or even frequent that place or go after that position, but they make the rules. I have my own businesses. I make the rules for that. And so do you if you have your own. So you want to be the one, you want to be the chosen one, okay? No matter what it is. Even if it's like just what do I want to say, promotion in a position that you already have. The way you navigate through your life is what makes the difference because your boss will give you that raise based on your presentation and the way you show up. You know, I've gotten called to take notes in rooms where there was like the CEO and so forth. Maybe his assistant was out, you know, can you come in and sit in on this meeting and take these notes? Nervous as can be, like, wow, why am I in here? But it's because of how I showed up. I was very professional always, and I still am for everything. And so you just want to have opportunities available to you. It makes me so sad when great people get looked over. And I'm like, oh, if they only knew who she was. But then I see that the person, they don't present themselves well. They go in saying, well, once they meet me, they'll see. But a lot of the times people know if they're going to hire you, they know if they're going to invite you back somewhere. They know all of these things in the first 10 seconds or so. And the rest is just filler. I promise you, that's how it is. That's just the shallow world we live in, and it's human nature. You assess somebody as they approach you, and you make those assumptions. And most of the time, those assumptions are correct, but sometimes they are not, and people lose out. And so I just don't want you to lose out. And just take some of these words to heart because I've learned them, and other people have. This is nothing new. It's just something that needs to be talked about because everything is so casual these days, and that doesn't always get you in the right room. Okay, and again, getting in the right room just mean opportunities. So let's not be so overly casual in life. I want the best for you. and you deserve the best. Thank you for joining me here today. So, wherever you are in the world, I hope you and yours have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, and we'll see you on the next one. You take care. Bye.